To the podium in the courtroom, please. Angel Camargo Arahuo to the chair. Good evening. Can I have your name and date of birth, please?
Leanne Serrato, June.
Thank you, Ms. Serrato. You are here on a failure to appear warrant issued by the West Mesa Justice Court on a misdemeanor shoplifting case. You are entitled to a court-appointed lawyer for purposes of release conditions on this warrant, and that lawyer will be appointed at your next court hearing. Your next hearing on this warrant will be an arraignment hearing August 15th at 8:30. It will take place in the West Mesa Justice Court. I have imposed a $50 secured appearance bond on this warrant. If you post that bond and you're released from custody, you are ordered not to return to the scene of the alleged underlying shoplifting offense, and you cannot possess any drugs without a valid prescription. Do you understand those conditions?
Yeah, I already have court on the 15th for something else, and so I'll go to court twice that day, or?
Is it also at 8:30? Is it in the same court? Is it also in West Mesa?
I think so, yeah.
If it is, perfect, then you'll just be seen on both cases.
Okay.
If it's not, do you still have your paperwork from the other case?
Not with me.
No, but somewhere in your possession, do you have it?
Yeah.
So when you get this paperwork, take that back and look at them. If they're not in the same court, if you're in custody, you'll be transported to one and you'll miss the second hearing. So if you look at your paperwork and they're both August 15th at 8:30 in two different courts, I highly encourage you to try to use the phone number in the release order to call the court and explain that you're scheduled in two different places. See if one of the courts will move that hearing. Okay, anything else? All right, thank you very much. You can step back and get your paperwork. Angel Camargo Araujo? Oh, I'm sorry, to the courtroom, please. And then if I could have Suzanne Wilcox Waldbeiser to the chair. Good evening. Can I have your name and date of birth, please?
Angel Camargo Arajo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Camargo Arajo. You are here on allegations of new charges. Those allegations are one count of causing criminal damage, a Class 6 felony, and one count of disorderly conduct, a Class 1 misdemeanor. You are entitled to a court-appointed lawyer to defend you, and I've appointed one for you. Your next court hearings will be a status conference August 27th and then a preliminary hearing August 29th. Both of those hearings will be at 8:30 in the morning in the Superior Court downtown. I am releasing you to the direction of pretrial services without a monetary bond. So you will be released from custody here within the next several hours. Once you are released, several conditions apply. First, you're required to get yourself to both of those court hearings. Second, you will be required to make contact with pretrial services at some point before 5 p.m. on Wednesday. With your release order, you're going to get a packet of information from pretrial. Please keep that. In that packet will be all of their contact information. In addition to contacting pretrial services and attending your court hearings, you are also prohibited upon release from returning to the scene where these alleged events occurred. You are prohibited from having any contact whatsoever with any alleged victim or any alleged witness of the underlying allegations. If these orders mean that I'm ordering you not to return to your primary residence, you are entitled to one civil standby, which means you can return to that location one time if accompanied by a law enforcement officer to retrieve any essential items from that property that you need. If you need that civil standby to retrieve any items, you can make that arrangement by calling the non-emergency number to any local police agency. Last, while you are on release in this case, you are prohibited from possessing any weapons, drugs without a valid prescription, or any alcohol. Do you understand those conditions?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. You can step back and get your paperwork. Suzanne Wilcox Waldbeiser to the podium in the courtroom, please. Brittany Crone to the chair. Good evening. May I please have your name and date of birth?
Suzanne Wilcox.
Thank you, Ms. Wilcox. You are here on allegations of new charges. Those allegations are one count of causing criminal damage, a Class 6 felony, one count of assault, and one count of disorderly conduct. Those last two are Class 1 misdemeanors. You are entitled to a court-appointed lawyer to defend you, and I have appointed one for you. Your next court hearings will be a status conference August 27th and then a preliminary hearing August 29th, both at 8:30 in the Superior Court downtown. Ms. Wilcox, I am also releasing you to the Direction of Pretrial Services. So you will be released from custody here within the next several hours. You do not have to post a bond in order to be eligible for release. Once you are released from custody, you will then be responsible for getting yourself to both of those court hearings. You will also be required to make contact with pretrial services no later than 5 p.m. on Wednesday. So please keep the packet that you get from pretrial services once you're released, and then in there is all of this, their physical location, their phone number. I think you get a fax number, maybe an email in there too. So please keep all of that and pick one of those avenues and contact pretrial services by 5 p.m. on Wednesday.
And I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't understand what I have to do by 5 p.m. on Wednesday.
Call pretrial services or go into their office. Somehow make contact with pretrial services.
Okay.
So if a phone call is easiest for you, you have the phone number in that packet. If going to their office is more convenient, you'll have their physical address in there. I think you might also get a fax number and an email address in there. So if those are better ways for you to contact them, you can use either of those. So I'm not telling you how to contact them, just that you have to contact them in some fashion.
Okay.
Okay. So once you're released, in addition to contacting pretrial services and attending your court hearings, you will also be ordered not to return to the scene where these alleged events occurred and not to have any contact with the alleged victim. If those two orders in combination mean that I'm ordering you not to return to your primary residence, you will be required to find an alternate residence at least between now and your first court hearing on the 27th. If you find an alternate residence, but you need to return to any shared residence to retrieve personal items, clothing, toiletries, you are entitled to a civil standby to go back to that location one time to retrieve any of those items. If you need to do that, you must be accompanied by law enforcement to go back to that location. You can make arrangements to have law enforcement escort you to that location by calling the non-emergency number to any local police agency. Last, while you're on release in this case, you are prohibited from possessing any weapons or drugs without a valid prescription. Do you understand all of those conditions?
Yes.
Okay, any other questions?
I do. Is there any way I could go to a different court that's closer to, I live in Peoria, and it's just easier for me than to go downtown, or does it have to be downtown?
So at least your first hearing has to be downtown. The only other Superior Court option, where do you live?
Like 83rd and Thunderbird.
In Surprise?
Peoria.
It's Peoria.
There's a courthouse right
There
down
is a Superior Courthouse in Surprise. So I'm not saying it's not possible to get your case transferred out to the Surprise Court, which will probably be closer, but I'm not the one that would have the authority to do that. So at least your first hearing on the 27th at 8:30, you will have to go downtown and see that judge there. Talk to your lawyer at that time, and your lawyer can either petition the court to have the case transferred out to Surprise or explain to you for whatever reason why that would not be possible.
Okay.
Okay, anything else?
All
right, thank you very much. You can step back and get your paperwork.
Thank you.
Brittany Crone to the podium in the courtroom, please. Israel Ortiz to the chair. Good evening. Can I please have your name and date of birth?
Brittany Crone.
Thank you, Ms. Crone. You are here on allegations of new charges. The allegations against you are one count of taking contraband into a correctional facility, a Class 2 felony, one count of narcotic drug possession, one count of dangerous drug possession, those are both Class 4 felonies, and one count of drug paraphernalia possession, which is a Class 6 felony. You are entitled to a court-appointed lawyer to defend you against those allegations, and I've appointed one for you. Your next court hearings will be a status conference August 27th and then a preliminary hearing August 29th, both at 8:30 in the Superior Court downtown. I am releasing you on your own recognizance, so you will be released from custody sometime here in the next several hours. Once you are released, in addition to attending your court hearings, you are prohibited from possessing any drugs without a valid prescription. Do you understand those conditions?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Crone. You can step back and get your paperwork. Israel Ortiz to the podium in the courtroom, please. Lawrence Gay to the chair. Good evening. May I please have your name and date of birth?
Israel Armando Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Ortiz. You are here on a failure to comply with court terms warrant issued by the Agua Fria Justice Court on a misdemeanor assault case. Because this is a misdemeanor case and it is post-adjudication, you do not qualify for a court-appointed lawyer at this hearing tonight. If you wish to have continued representation in that underlying case and you don't already have a lawyer, I encourage you to seek an independent lawyer of your own choosing at your own expense. Your next hearing on this warrant will be an arraignment hearing August 28th at 10:30 in the morning in the Agua Fria Justice Court. I am releasing you on your own recognizance on this warrant, which means you will be released from custody. You will then be responsible for getting yourself to that court hearing August 28th at 10:30. Do you understand that information?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ortiz. You can step back and get your paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
Lawrence Gay to the podium in the courtroom, please. Brian Dillon to the chair. Johnson, can you wake him up? Lawrence Gay is this guy in the black shirt right here. Please, thank you. Good evening, sir. Can I have your name and date of birth, please?
Brian Dillon.
Thank you, Mr. Dillon. You are here on a failure to appear warrant issued by the Surprise Municipal Court on a misdemeanor criminal trespassing case. Because this is a misdemeanor allegation, the nature of that charge does not entitle you to a court-appointed lawyer. If you wish to have legal representation against that criminal trespassing charge and you don't already have a lawyer, I encourage you to hire a lawyer of your own choosing at your own expense. Your next court hearing on this warrant will be an arraignment hearing September 10th at 1:30 in the afternoon. It will be in the Surprise Municipal Court. I am releasing you on your own recognizance, so you're going to be released from custody. Your next hearing is not until September 10th at 1:30, though. So please keep your release order and do whatever you need to do. Put it on a calendar, program it into a phone, do whatever you have to do so that you don't forget to go to court on September 10th. If you don't show up at that court hearing, they'll issue a new warrant for your arrest, and we'll just have to keep doing this until you go to court.
Yeah, I was in the hospital.
Okay.
And I was going to go today, actually. That's why I was up by surprise.
Got it.
And they got me
Okay.
right before I got there.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you didn't just forget to go to court, so I'm less concerned about you remembering to make it now. But please make every effort to attend that hearing on September 10th. If something comes up and you know beforehand you cannot make that, please reach out to the court, because if you just don't show up, like I said, a new warrant will be issued for your arrest. So if that doesn't work out and you know in advance, please make sure you let the court know. If something comes up like you're hospitalized and you don't have the ability to reach out to the court prior to that hearing, as soon as you know you missed it, call them and let them know the circumstances and see if you can handle it or get a new court hearing before they issue a warrant.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, sir. You can step back and get your paperwork. Lawrence Gay to the podium in the courtroom, please. Fulvio Muniz to the chair. Okay, can I have your name and date of birth?
Fabio Muniz.
Thank you, Mr. Muniz. You are here on allegations of new charges. Those allegations are one count of misdemeanor assault, one count of misdemeanor disorderly conduct. You are entitled to a court-appointed lawyer to defend you against those misdemeanor allegations, and that lawyer is going to be appointed by the next judge you see at your next court hearing. So you are entitled to a lawyer, but the next judge you see is the one that will appoint that lawyer. The next judge that you see will see you at an arraignment hearing August 28th at 8:30 in the Superior Court downtown. I am releasing you on your own recognizance with several conditions. First, you are ordered not to return to the scene where these alleged events occurred. Second, you are not to have any contact whatsoever with any alleged victims or any alleged witnesses. You are entitled to one civil standby if you need to return to the scene where these events occurred to retrieve any personal items. If you do that, you must be accompanied by a law enforcement officer. You can make arrangements to have a law enforcement officer escort you to that location if you need that by calling the non-emergency number to any local police agency. If you use that civil standby to retrieve personal items, please get everything from that location that you might need between now and at least your first court hearing, August 28th, because you only get one of those, so you can only return to that location that one time. Also, while you're on release in this case, you are prohibited from possessing any weapons or drugs without a valid prescription, and you are ordered to strictly comply with the terms of any orders of protection that have been or will be issued against you. Do you understand all of those conditions?
Yes.
Okay.
How do I go about getting like a DV grant or like domestic violence help or something like that?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Because the location that my stuff's at, like I share a lease with that person.
Okay.
So I would want to like kind of get out of it if you have a resource for it.
Oh, I don't know off the top of my head how to give you assistance with that, but here's what I'll tell you. So when you go to court on the 28th, talk to the lawyer that's appointed by that judge. That lawyer will be able to provide you either resources or legal advice on how to go about either breaking that lease or getting what information you need to the landlord so that they know what's going on.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Muniz. You can step back and get your paperwork. All right, Lawrence Gay to the podium in the courtroom, please. Michael Stone to the chair. Can I have your name and date of birth, please?
Lawrence Gay.
Thank you, Mr. Gay. You are here on allegations of new charges. The allegations against you are 1 count of narcotic drug possession, a Class 4 felony, and 1 count of drug paraphernalia possession, a Class 6 felony. You are entitled to a court-appointed lawyer to defend you against those allegations, and I have appointed one for you. Your next court hearings will be a status conference August 27th and then a preliminary hearing August 29th, both of them at 8:30 in the Superior Court downtown. I am releasing you on your own recognizance, so you will be released from custody sometime here within the next several hours. Once you are released, you will be responsible for getting yourself to those court hearings on the 27th and the 29th. In addition, while you are on release in this case, you are prohibited from possessing any drugs without a valid prescription. Do you understand those conditions?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gay. You can step back and get your paperwork.
But I was supposed to be going into a detox. So with all that and going to court, will they be able to bring me here? So
I don't know. That'll be up to the detox center that you get into or go to. So what I would suggest is upon admission to a detox center, let them know that you have court hearings scheduled. If they tell you that's fine, we'll work with you, we'll get you to those court hearings, perfect. If they tell you that your choices are check into that detox center or go to court because they're not going to take you, in your release order, I have given you a phone number to the public defender's office. So if that happens and the detox center says we will not take you to court and you elect to check yourself in because your sobriety is more important than your court date right now, please reach out to the public defender if you have the opportunity to. Let them know that you have court dates pending, but that you've elected to make your sobriety your priority. So don't just, if you have the option, don't just check in and ignore this case. Try to reach out to the public defender's office and just let them know, here's who I am, here's what's going on. I know I have court dates, but I'm going to be in the detox center, and see if the public defender's office can offer you some assistance or help you figure out how to navigate having a court case while you're trying to get sober.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
No, that'd be it.
All right, thank you, sir. Go ahead and step back and get your paperwork. Michael Stone. Okay, good evening, sir. Can I have your name and date of birth, please?
My name is Michael Stone, 12.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stone. Okay, you are here because an arrest warrant has been issued for your arrest by the state of Michigan. Before you were put on a court calendar here in Arizona, Michigan confirmed that that is a valid warrant and that they're willing to extradite you. Because you're here on that extraditable Michigan warrant, unlike everybody else that's already been seen, you will have a choice to make in this hearing tonight. You can choose to waive your right to an extradition hearing and agree to go back to Michigan, or you can elect not to waive your right and demand that an extradition hearing be held before you are returned to Michigan. Before you came into the courtroom, did you get a laminated card to review?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you have an opportunity to review the information on that card?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Very good. As I stated, you are here on an arrest warrant issued by the state of Michigan. You can choose to waive your right to an extradition proceeding and agree to go back to Michigan within 30 days. If you do that, I'm going to call that option 1. It's not marked option 1 on that card. I just want to keep the options clear, or the two different choices clear. If you pick option 1 and you waive your right to an extradition hearing, you are not waiving any defenses you have to whatever the allegations against you in Michigan are. You're only waiving extradition hearings, so you're only waiving the requirement that Michigan prove that they're allowed to extradite you before you're returned to Michigan. So you can waive your right to extradition proceedings. The only thing that means is that you would tell Michigan, you can come get me, I'll agree to go back with you.
Okay.
Again, not waiving any defenses you have to whatever's going on in Michigan.
Yes, ma'am.
If you pick option 1 and you waive your right to extradition proceedings, you will stay in custody here in Arizona for up to 30 days. That 30-day time period will start ticking tomorrow if you don't have any local undisposed charges here in Arizona. So if you have no criminal matters pending in Arizona, that 30 days will start tomorrow.
Okay.
If you have pending criminal charges anywhere in Arizona, that 30 days will not start ticking until your criminal charges here in Arizona are resolved.
Okay.
Okay, so option 1, waive your right to an extradition hearing, agree Michigan can come get you, stay in custody without the possibility of bond for up to 30 days.
Right.
Starting either tomorrow or after the disposition of criminal charges.
Okay.
All right. Option 2 is you do not waive your right to extradition proceedings. You demand to have an extradition hearing held here in Arizona in which Michigan has to prove their entitlement to take you back to Michigan. If you choose that option 2, I will set an extradition hearing for August 26th at 1:30 in the afternoon. Extradition proceedings in Arizona are civil, not criminal, which means you are not entitled to a court-appointed lawyer if you elect to have an extradition hearing. You have the right, if you pick option 2 and I set that hearing, to hire a lawyer to represent you at your own expense. If you pick option 2 and I set that extradition hearing, you are bond eligible on the Michigan warrant. So if you pick option 2 and I set that hearing, I will also set your bond at $50,000 secured appearance. Please keep in mind, Mr. Stone, that if you are being held in custody on some other matter, not this warrant, if you post that bond, that doesn't entitle you to release on anything else. So if you're in custody on something that's unrelated to this Michigan warrant and you're not eligible for release on whatever that is,
Yes, ma'am.
then even if you pick option 2, I would encourage you not to post that bond because it would probably just be a waste of your money if you posted that and you're still in custody on something else.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So if you pick option 2, I set a hearing August 26th. You have the right to hire a lawyer to defend you. I will impose a $50,000 secured appearance bond. The extradition proceedings could take up to 90 days between that initial hearing and governor's warrants being signed in Arizona and Michigan. Those governor's warrants are what will require Arizona to release you to Michigan, which those governor's warrants are what will allow Michigan to come into Arizona and take you back to Michigan.
Okay.
So in option 2, from that hearing on the 26th, you could be looking at 90 days before governor's warrants are signed. So in that 90 days, if you posted that bond and you're otherwise eligible for release, you would be released from custody. You'd be required to stay in Arizona. So if you picked option 2 and you posted that bond, you could not then just leave Arizona and take yourself back to Michigan.
Okay.
Okay, do you understand the 2 options?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have questions about either option?
Yes, ma'am. Only question I have, if I pick option 1, is it possible that I can pay the bond here and still
So in option one, you don't have the choice of a bond.
Okay.
If you pick option one and you waive your right to an extradition hearing, you are automatically held in custody without bond for up to 30 days.
Okay.
You're only bond eligible if you pick option two.
Okay. I'll take option one.
You would like to waive your right to an extradition hearing and agree to go back to Michigan?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Stone, because you are waiving a right that you are legally entitled to, I do need to ask you some questions on the record. I will only ask that you answer verbally. You've been doing great so far, but please don't just shake or nod your head. Say
Yes.
something out loud if you would, please.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, did you read the waiver of extradition paperwork on that big card?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand you do not have to sign the waiver of extradition paperwork?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand you have the right to an extradition hearing should you elect to have one?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that if you elected to have an extradition hearing, you would have the right to hire a lawyer to represent you?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand you have the right to demand that a governor's warrant is signed in Arizona and in Michigan before your return to Michigan?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that if you picked option two and I set an extradition hearing, you would be entitled to bond?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you wish to give up those rights and sign the waiver of extradition paperwork?
Yes.
Has anybody threatened you or promised you anything in exchange for your signature on the waiver paperwork?
No.
Have you had any drugs, alcohol, or medication in the last 24 hours that would affect your ability to waive a legal right?
No.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stone. I'm finding that you are knowingly, intelligently, and voluntarily signing the waiver of extradition paperwork. I will also sign that paperwork. I will then direct the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office to notify Michigan that you are ready to return. They will have 30 days to come get you. That 30 days starting either tomorrow or at the conclusion of any local charges.
Okay.
Do you have any questions before I ask you to come up and sign?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you very much. Unlike everybody else, if you'll step to your right, I do need you to physically sign that waiver.
Yes, ma'am.